In the heart of Africa, where kingdoms stretch across endless landscapes and legends are born under the watchful eyes of the stars, there exists a mysterious prophecy, one that tells of a woman destined to change the world. But she is not born into royalty. Instead, fate seems to favor those who least expect it. The first whispers of this future queen arise in the smallest villages, hidden within the shadows of towering mountains and deep, untamed forests. She is an orphan, raised by a grandmother who tells tales of the forgotten kings and queens who once ruled with wisdom and grace. This young girl is not supposed to rise. Her bloodline is ordinary, her parents unknown, and her village nothing but a dot on the map. Yet, her eyes hold the fire of a king's ambition, and her mind is sharper than the sharpest spear. She is not simply a survivor, she is a leader in the making. As she grows, her village faces constant threats. Raiders from neighboring tribes, famine, and the shifting tides of power. It is in these dark times that she discovers her true power. It is not a weapon that she wields, but a gift, the ability to inspire loyalty and unite disparate people under a single cause. Her voice, once soft and hesitant, becomes a call to arms that echoes through the land. Her bravery becomes the flame that lights the path for her people, guiding them through the darkest moments. But the real secret lies within her. The blood of forgotten rulers runs through her veins. Her lineage, lost to time, was once tied to the very throne of a great empire, an empire that fell due to treachery and betrayal. The young girl uncovers ancient scrolls hidden beneath the roots of sacred trees, revealing the truth of her bloodline. She is the heir to the throne, a queen in the making, destined to restore the lost empire and avenge her ancestors. However, with this discovery comes a heavy burden. The knowledge of her true identity places a target on her back. Those in power, fearing the return of the empire, begin to plot against her. Friends turn into enemies, and allies become rivals. Yet, despite the growing danger, the young queen rises, her heart set on a singular vision, to restore the lost legacy of her people and bring forth an era of peace and prosperity once more. But as she takes her first steps toward the throne, she realizes that power comes at a price. Her journey is fraught with betrayal, deceit, and sacrifice. Will she be able to reclaim the throne, or will the enemies who seek to destroy her claim their victory first? Her legacy begins not with a crown, but with a battle for survival, and the battle for a future that will change the course of history forever. In the golden sands of the ancient kingdom of Sheba, a queen is crowned amidst whispered prophecies. Queen Makeda, known to the world as the Queen of Sheba, inherits not just a kingdom but a legacy of secrets buried deep within the land's rich soil. Her reign begins with promise and prosperity, but as she steps into her power, she uncovers a disturbing truth. Her kingdom, though thriving, has enemies lurking in the shadows, coveting her riches and her very throne. Makeda's beauty is renowned, but it is her intelligence and strategic mind that truly set her apart. While the world sees a queen adorned in gold, the woman who rules Sheba is a visionary, one who understands that her kingdom's prosperity cannot remain hidden forever. The people whisper of her brilliance and ambition, but what they don't know is that she has already sensed the winds of change blowing. There is talk of a great alliance, one that could shift the balance of power across the world, and it involves the mighty King Solomon of Israel. Driven by the desire to secure Sheba's future, Makeda travels to King Solomon's court, a journey fraught with danger, uncertainty, and unspoken expectations. She enters the gates of Jerusalem not as a conqueror but as a ruler in search of an alliance that could strengthen both their kingdoms. But Solomon, known for his wisdom, is not easily swayed. Their first meeting is one of guarded diplomacy, with both rulers unsure of each other's true intentions. As the two rulers navigate the tense waters of politics, religion, and trade, an unexpected bond begins to form. But there is more to this alliance than what meets the eye. When Makeda uncovers hidden scrolls in Solomon's chambers, ancient texts that speak of a shared destiny between their two bloodlines, she begins to wonder if their meeting was not a coincidence, but part of a grander, divine plan. However, this alliance is not without its dangers. The closer Makeda and Solomon grow, the more they realize that their union may threaten the power structures of both their kingdoms. The forces that seek to destroy Sheba's riches and Solomon's peace will stop at nothing to sabotage their relationship. Political rivals within both courts stir up unrest, hoping to turn the powerful alliance into a deadly rivalry. As the stakes rise, Makeda must navigate this fragile bond, balancing the desires of her people with her growing feelings for Solomon. A deep mystery begins to unravel, one that ties their fates together more than either of them could have ever imagined. Is their alliance a simple political maneuver, or does it signal the beginning of a new era where the fates of two great kingdoms are sealed by a prophecy older than time itself? But with power comes betrayal. The closer Makeda gets to understanding the true purpose of their union, the more she realizes that not everything she was told is true. The allies she thought she could trust are hiding secrets of their own. As the alliance begins to take shape, Makeda faces the greatest test of all. Can she protect her kingdom, her people, and her heart from the very man she has come to trust? In the lush and strategic lands of Angola, Queen Nzinga rises from a history of conflict, shaped by both her royal bloodline and a deep-seated desire to protect her people. The Portuguese, with their growing colonial power, have set their sights on Angola's rich resources, and they believe they can easily subdue its people with force. But they have underestimated Nzinga, a queen whose mind is as sharp as her warriors' spears. Nzinga's reign begins not with the crown, but with war. Her kingdom has been ravaged by years of Portuguese incursions, and the once vibrant land is now on the brink of collapse. As she ascends to power, Nzinga quickly realizes that her enemies are not just those who oppose her openly, but also the traitors within her court, willing to sell her people's future for their own gain. Her first encounter with the Portuguese is a masterstroke of diplomacy and deception. The Portuguese governor, expecting to intimidate the young queen, is stunned when Nzinga, without hesitation, assumes the throne in front of him, refusing to bow to the foreign invader. To placate him, she agrees to a meeting, but the situation quickly turns when she demands a chair, one that the Portuguese governor refuses to provide. With a sly smile, Nzinga orders one of her servants to kneel, using them as a living seat, all while maintaining a stoic composure. The Portuguese, humiliated but determined, retreat, but they underestimate her again. Nzinga knows that her true battle lies not only in the field of war but in the complex game of alliances. She strikes one with the Dutch, who are equally eager to oppose the Portuguese. But in her own court, she faces rivals who question her leadership and suspect her of playing dangerous games with the enemy. Her own brother, the King of Ndongo, is torn between loyalty to his sister and his own desire to negotiate peace with the Portuguese. As tensions mount, Nzinga must find a way to unite her people and create a strong front against the foreign invaders and internal factions that threaten to destroy everything she has worked for. The stakes grow higher as the Portuguese, sensing her growing strength, send a fleet to crush her forces once and for all. Nzinga, though outnumbered, uses her unmatched tactical brilliance to orchestrate a series of guerrilla strikes, decimating the Portuguese forces and outsmarting them at every turn. But victory comes at a cost. Her forces are depleted, and the land is scarred by years of war. As Nzinga's reputation grows across Africa and Europe, so does the cost of her resistance. A new threat emerges from within the Portuguese ranks, a cunning general who seeks to break her spirit by targeting her most trusted allies. The queen, ever the strategist, is forced to confront betrayal not only from her enemies but from those closest to her. Will Nzinga be able to maintain control of her kingdom, or will the relentless tide of colonialism finally overwhelm her? In the final twist of her story, Nzinga finds herself facing an impossible choice: to continue fighting a war that may destroy everything she holds dear, or to broker peace at the cost of her own legacy. The Queen's journey from defiance to survival is a tale of wit, strength, and unyielding love for her people, but the true battle may not be won with swords alone. In the grand halls of Alexandria, Cleopatra, the last pharaoh of Egypt, stands poised at the crossroads of destiny. A woman of unparalleled beauty, wit, and intelligence, Cleopatra rises to power amidst a crumbling kingdom, its glory fading under the pressure of internal strife and external threats. But her brilliance is more than her allure. She is a master of political intrigue, an expert in the art of alliances, and a ruler who understands that to maintain power, one must play the game of empires. Her first great political maneuver comes when she seduces Julius Caesar, the most powerful man in Rome, using not just her charms but her intellect. Together, they restore Egypt's power, with Cleopatra securing her throne once again. Their love affair, a tale for the ages, is marked by political victories and moments of passion, but beneath the surface, both Cleopatra and Caesar are playing a high-stakes game where every decision could tip the scales of fate. However, as Caesar's power grows, so does the danger to Cleopatra's kingdom. His ambitions expand beyond Egypt, and while their alliance seems unbreakable, Cleopatra begins to feel a growing unease. Caesar's eventual assassination leaves her vulnerable. Her protector is gone, and Rome is now ruled by those who see Egypt not as an ally, but as a prize to be claimed. In the aftermath of Caesar's death, Cleopatra forms a new alliance with Mark Antony, another Roman general, hoping that together they can secure Egypt's place in the world. Their relationship, both political and personal, grows intense, drawing the ire of Rome's Senate and, more dangerously, the wrath of Octavian, Caesar's adopted son, who seeks to dismantle the power Cleopatra and Antony have built. As Cleopatra and Antony's power rises, so does their vulnerability. Their shared ambition blinds them to the looming storm, and betrayal begins to seep into their relationship, both from within their ranks and from the shadows of their enemies. But the greatest betrayal lies within Cleopatra's own court. A trusted advisor, a close confidant, begins to whisper to Octavian, offering secrets that could destroy Cleopatra's hold over Egypt. As Antony grows distracted, entranced by his own military campaigns, Cleopatra begins to feel the weight of isolation. She realizes that while she may control Egypt, her true power lies in the hearts of the Roman elite, and they are slipping away from her grasp. The final blow comes when Antony, in a moment of weakness and manipulated by deceit, makes a fateful decision that seals the fate of both Egypt and Rome. In a tragic twist, Antony's defeat at the Battle of Actium, orchestrated by Octavian, signals the fall of Cleopatra's reign. As the walls of Alexandria close in, Cleopatra, faced with the fall of her empire, chooses a final act of defiance. She refuses to surrender, but rather, she seals her fate in a death that would echo throughout history. In her last moments, Cleopatra's legacy as a ruler is both sealed and shattered. Was her love for Caesar and Antony genuine, or was it simply a means to secure power? As her life ends in the shadow of betrayal, her story becomes a legend, a tale of ambition, love, and survival. But the true betrayal lies not in her lovers or her enemies, but in the realization that she never truly held the one thing she needed most: control over her own destiny. In the heart of the Ashanti Empire, nestled among the lush hills and rivers of modern-day Ghana, Queen Yaa Asantewaa rises as a force unlike any the empire has seen before. Known for her fierce determination and unyielding will, Yaa Asantewaa is the protector of the Ashanti people, but more importantly, she is the guardian of their most sacred treasure, the golden stool. This ancient symbol of the Ashanti monarchy represents the soul of the people, their history, and their royal lineage. It is said that whoever possesses the golden stool wields the power to command the respect and loyalty of the entire Ashanti Empire. As the Ashanti kingdom flourishes under her leadership, the encroaching power of the British threatens to tear apart everything she holds dear. The British, hungry for control over the wealth and resources of West Africa, begin to advance into Ashanti territory, seeking to claim the golden stool as a symbol of their dominance. But Yaa Asantewaa, now the regent of the kingdom after the death of her brother, King Prempeh, is not one to back down from a challenge. When British forces demand the golden stool, the Ashanti people, led by Yaa Asantewaa, face an agonizing choice: surrender their sacred symbol of power, or fight to the death to protect their heritage. Yaa Asantewaa, in a bold act of defiance, refuses to hand over the stool, declaring, "If you want it, you must first take my life." With these words, she ignites the flame of rebellion within her people, and the Ashanti kingdom unites in defense of their spiritual heart. But the road to war is fraught with peril. As Yaa Asantewaa assembles her warriors, a series of betrayals begin to unfold. Allies she once trusted begin to question her leadership, and whispers of fear and doubt spread through the ranks. The British, not just content with military force, begin a psychological war, offering bribes and promises to those in Yaa Asantewaa's inner circle. One by one, her closest advisors and generals begin to falter, turning against her for personal gain. In the face of growing internal divisions, Yaa Asantewaa must become more than a warrior queen. She must be a master strategist. She calls upon the Ashanti people's traditional war tactics, leading her forces through ambushes, surprise attacks, and guerrilla warfare. Yet, as the battle rages on, the toll of war begins to weigh heavily on her heart. Her people suffer, and the cost of resistance mounts. Even as the British suffer defeats at the hands of her forces, Yaa Asantewaa knows that the end is near. The final twist of fate comes when, after months of brutal fighting, the British forces succeed in capturing Yaa Asantewaa's beloved capital, Kumasi. The Golden Stool, however, remains hidden, its whereabouts known only to a select few loyal to the Queen. But the fall of Kumasi does not signal the end of Yaa Asantewaa's struggle. In exile, she continues to rally support, becoming a symbol of African resistance against colonial forces. Though the British may have claimed victory in battle, they have not defeated the spirit of the Ashanti people. As Yaa Asantewaa's legacy endures, she becomes more than a queen. She is a symbol of defiance, of a people unwilling to bow to foreign invaders. Her story is passed down through generations, a reminder that the heart of a kingdom cannot be taken by force, for its spirit lives on in the souls of those who continue to fight for its preservation. In the end, the Golden Stool remains a symbol of hope and resilience, forever bound to the memory of the warrior queen who gave everything to protect it. In the ancient kingdom of Zazzau, now part of modern-day Nigeria, a young princess named Amina rises against the expectations of her time. Born to a royal family, she is raised in the shadows of her older brother, destined to rule the kingdom, or so it seems. But Amina has no intention of waiting for a crown that she feels is rightfully hers. Instead, she trains in the art of war, mastering archery, horsemanship, and strategy. Skills uncommon for women of her time but essential for what lies ahead. Her reign begins under the shadow of political unrest and tribal rivalries, as neighboring kingdoms eye Zazzau's wealth and strategic position. Her brother, the king, has grown complacent, relying on the traditional ways of diplomacy rather than military might. Amina, however, believes that Zazzau's future lies not in diplomacy but in strength she is ready to wield. When her brother dies unexpectedly, Amina is left with a fragile throne. The court and many nobles are skeptical, believing a woman cannot lead a kingdom that has been ruled by men for centuries. Amina's claim to the throne is contested, but with bold determination, she takes control, silencing her critics by assembling a powerful army of elite warriors, both men and women. Her first act as queen is to defend Zazzau from an invading force, defeating them with brilliant tactics and overwhelming force. The victory solidifies her rule and sends a clear message to both her people and her enemies. Amina is not just a queen, she is a warrior. Amina's rise to power does not come without sacrifices. As she expands Zazzau's borders, she faces resistance not just from rival kingdoms, but also from her own people. Many are uncomfortable with the notion of a woman leading armies into battle, and whispers of dark magic and witchcraft begin to spread, rumors designed to undermine her authority. Some even claim that her victories are due to supernatural powers, rather than military genius. Yet, Amina continues to prove herself, leading her forces in countless campaigns, expanding her empire, and fortifying the kingdom's defenses. But the real test of Amina's strength comes not in the battlefield, but in her own court. As she consolidates power, an old ally, who once helped her rise to the throne, begins to challenge her leadership. Betrayal comes from within her closest circle, as trusted advisors seek to undermine her rule for personal gain. Amina's throne is no longer just a prize for foreign invaders, but for the very people she once called allies. Amidst the political turmoil, Amina finds herself fighting two battles, one against external enemies, and one against the internal fracture that threatens to tear her kingdom apart. As tensions rise, she must decide whether to trust her instincts and fight alone or to try and reconcile with the dissenters in her court. Her strength is tested as she faces betrayal from someone she considered a friend, someone who once swore loyalty to her cause. In the final twist, Amina's greatest rival is not the foreign king she once defeated in battle, but a member of her own bloodline, her cousin, a brilliant strategist who has secretly gathered his own following and now seeks to usurp her throne. The battle for Zaza comes to a head in a climactic showdown where loyalty, love, and ambition collide. Amina must fight not only for the survival of her kingdom but for her very right to rule. Her legacy, however, is unshakable. Even in defeat, Amina's name is forever etched into the annals of history as one of Africa's most powerful warrior queens. Her military innovations and her ability to unite her people under her leadership become legendary. Though her kingdom eventually faces challenges from within and external forces, Amina's story serves as a reminder of the power and strength of a woman who would not be silenced. Her rise to power, her battles, and her legacy will be remembered for centuries as a beacon of female empowerment and military brilliance. In the ancient and rugged highlands of Ethiopia, Empress Teta Batul stands as a towering figure of resilience and determination. Born into the aristocracy, Teta's early life is marked by the whispers of power that surround her family, but it is not until her marriage to Emperor Menelik II that her true influence begins to unfold. While her husband leads the Ethiopian Empire into a new era, Teta's role is often underestimated by outsiders. But those who underestimate her do so at their peril. When Menelik faces the looming threat of Italian colonization, Teta emerges not as a passive consort, but as a warrior in her own right. She actively participates in the planning of military strategy and the defense of Ethiopia, playing a crucial role in the country's resistance. But as the Italian forces grow more aggressive and invasive, Teta realizes that the very foundation of her empire, her people, her culture, and her family, is at risk. Ethiopia is on the brink of destruction, and Teta must find a way to protect everything she holds dear. As the Italian forces march towards Ethiopia, Teta's strength is put to the test. Her husband Menelik is distracted by his court's inner power struggles and his own hesitations about the impending war. It is in this moment of vulnerability that Teta's power shines the brightest. Recognizing that her husband's authority is weakening and his health is declining, she steps forward, making her voice heard in the courts of power. Though Menelik is the emperor, Teta is the empress who understands the pulse of the nation and its people. It is her strategic mind, her insight into diplomacy, and her unrelenting will that keep Ethiopia united in the face of foreign aggression. But Teta's journey is not without its obstacles. As tensions rise, she faces enemies within her own kingdom who believe that her growing influence is a threat to their own power. Her own court is divided, and betrayal simmers just beneath the surface. Her closest advisors, once loyal to her cause, begin to turn against her, seeking their own political advantages. There are whispers that her role as empress is nothing more than ceremonial. That she should leave the military strategy to her husband and the generals. Yet Teta's instincts tell her that her kingdom is at a crossroads, and she is not one to step aside. As the Italians invade, Teta's determination pushes her to take action. She organizes Ethiopian forces into strategic battalions, rallying her people with fiery speeches and resolute leadership. The battle that follows, particularly the pivotal Battle of Adwa, becomes a turning point not only for Ethiopia but for Teta herself. Though Menelik is hailed as the leader of the victory, it is Teta's behind-the-scenes work that secures the triumph. She ensures that the Ethiopian army is equipped, supplied, and fortified in ways that no one else could have imagined. However, victory brings its own set of complications. Tetu's role in the war effort is often overshadowed by Menelik's public recognition, and her growing influence stirs jealousy among other factions in the court. With her husband's reign starting to decline due to his health, Tetu faces a difficult choice: continue to rule alongside her husband or claim the throne for herself. As court politics become increasingly murky and treachery spreads, Tetu realizes that her legacy is in jeopardy. The very people she fought to protect now question her authority, and an internal rebellion begins to brew against her rule. The final twist comes when Tetu, the fierce protector of Ethiopia, finds herself sidelined as the political tides shift. Menelik, once a partner in power, begins to trust others, leaving Tetu increasingly isolated. Her downfall begins when she is exiled from the court and forced to relinquish her position as empress, despite her critical role in the empire's survival. Though she is no longer officially recognized as the ruler of Ethiopia, her legacy endures. The women and men who remember her heroism continue to honor her as the true architect of Ethiopia's victory over the Italians, a queen who fought not for glory, but for the survival of her people. In the end, Tetu's story is one of sacrifice, courage, and leadership. She may have been stripped of her throne, but the memory of her power and determination remains deeply embedded in Ethiopia's history. She is remembered not just as an empress, but as a queen who held the throne in her heart, one who never gave up the fight to protect her kingdom, her people, and her legacy. In the land of the Nile, where the gods themselves are said to walk among mortals, Queen Hatshepsut rises to power in a time of uncertainty and turmoil. As the daughter of Pharaoh Thutmose I and the wife of her half-brother Thutmose II, Hatshepsut's path to the throne is anything but straightforward. Though born into royalty, she is not the expected heir. Her half-brother, Thutmose III, is the rightful successor. But destiny has other plans. After the sudden death of her husband, Thutmose II, the throne passes to their young son, Thutmose III, but he is too young to rule. In the wake of his death, a regency is formed, but Hatshepsut, ever ambitious and ever calculating, takes matters into her own hands. Claiming the throne for herself, she breaks with tradition by assuming the role of pharaoh, a title that has traditionally been reserved for men. To solidify her rule, she presents herself not just as the queen, but as a male king, a divine ruler sent by the gods to protect Egypt. Her decision is met with resistance, both from within her court and from the people of Egypt. Her rise to power is seen as a dangerous break from tradition, and many of her nobles and advisors question her ability to lead. Whispers spread through the palace halls, questioning whether a woman can truly rule a kingdom that has long been dominated by powerful male pharaohs. Even her priests and advisors are unsure of her legitimacy, with many believing the gods would never sanction such a deviation from the norm. But Hatshepsut, ever the master of diplomacy, skillfully navigates the complex political landscape, using her intelligence and charm to solidify her rule. She commissions grand architectural projects that solidify her place in history, including the construction of her magnificent mortuary temple at Deir el-Bahari, which would become one of the most iconic structures in Egypt. Her reign is marked by peace, prosperity, and remarkable economic expansion, with trade routes stretching as far as Punt, a distant land that brings riches to Egypt. However, as her power grows, so do the dangers. Those who have long resisted her rule begin to plot against her, hoping to restore the traditional line of male succession. As she solidifies her reign, Hatshepsut faces mounting pressure to produce an heir and prove her worthiness as pharaoh, but this desire for a male successor becomes a source of internal conflict. The pressure grows when her once loyal court begins to question her position, accusing her of usurping the throne and defying the will of the gods. Her image begins to be distorted, with propaganda circulating that casts her as a false ruler, someone who has overstepped her bounds. The greatest challenge Hatshepsut faces, however, comes not from her enemies outside the palace but from her own bloodline. As Thutmose III matures, his ambition grows, and he begins to question his mother's rule. In a twist of fate, Thutmose III, once a young, vulnerable prince under his mother's watch, rises to power and begins to erase his mother's legacy. He orders the destruction of her statues, the defacement of her inscriptions, and the erasure of her name from the historical records. It is as though Hatshepsut's reign never happened, and she is erased from the annals of history. But despite the attempts to erase her legacy, Hatshepsut's story is not forgotten. Her reign, though brief and marred by controversy, stands as one of Egypt's most prosperous periods. While Thutmose III may have sought to erase her memory, Hatshepsut's architectural feats and her political savvy continue to echo throughout time. She is remembered not just as a woman who defied tradition, but as a ruler who crafted a legacy of power, strength, and vision that transcended the gender expectations of her time. In the end, Hatshepsut's story is one of defiance, legacy, and the complexities of power. She rose to the throne not by birthright, but through sheer will and determination. Her reign is a testament to the power of perseverance and vision, a legacy that, despite attempts to bury it, continues to inspire generations. In the modern era, Africa is a continent of immense diversity, rich in history, culture, and strength. The legacy of its powerful queens continues to echo through the corridors of time, but in today's world, the challenges are as complex and perilous as ever. The rise of modern African women in leadership roles is a testament to the enduring spirit of the queens who came before them. Yet with power comes the same battles their ancestors fought. Betrayal, manipulation, and the struggle to maintain control. Across the continent, the story of powerful queens unfolds in the corridors of politics, business, and social movements. From the halls of government in Abuja to the corporate boardrooms in Johannesburg, African women are reclaiming spaces that were once dominated by men. However, these modern queens face challenges not only from external forces but from within their own communities. Just as Cleopatra had to navigate Roman politics and Zinga fought against Portuguese colonizers, these women must contend with the legacies of colonialism, patriarchy, and the weight of tradition that often feels impossible to break free from. One such queen rises from the shadows of her humble beginnings. A woman who once faced rejection and doubt, she climbs the political ladder, gaining power with each victory. Yet, the closer she gets to the highest office, the more she realizes that power is not freely given. Those who once supported her now see her as a threat, and they begin to sabotage her efforts from within her own inner circle. Betrayal comes in the form of a trusted ally who conspires to undermine her at every turn, feeding false rumors and manipulating the media to tarnish her reputation. This queen must navigate not only the political jungle but also the treacherous waters of loyalty and betrayal that threaten to consume her. Elsewhere, a modern-day business tycoon, known for her innovative mind and entrepreneurial spirit, rises to prominence in the corporate world. She challenges the old ways of doing business and fights against the exploitation that many women face in the workplace. But her success comes at a cost. The very men who once helped her rise to the top now conspire to take away her hard-earned empire, using their wealth and influence to manipulate the system in their favor. As she fights back, she discovers that the corporate world is just as ruthless as the battlefields her ancestors once fought on. The stakes are high, and the betrayals cut deep. Can she hold on to the empire she's built, or will she fall victim to the same forces of greed and deceit that have claimed so many before her? In a third corner of the continent, a queen of the arts emerges. Her music, her films, her writing, everything she touches resonates with the pulse of Africa. She becomes a global icon, celebrated for her work and her commitment to social justice. But as she rises in fame, her message begins to attract dangerous attention. A network of political forces, both local and international, seeks to silence her. Using everything from social media smear campaigns to covert operations, they attempt to discredit her work and destroy her career. Yet, she refuses to be broken. Like the queens of old, she uses her voice not just for art but for revolution, knowing that her power lies not in her fame but in the movement she inspires. These modern queens, each in their own way, face the same struggles their ancestors faced: the fight for control, the battle for legacy, and the constant threat of betrayal. Yet they also share the same strength, the same resilience, and the same drive to carve out a place for themselves in a world that often seeks to silence them. The legacy of the ancient queens lives on in these women, not as passive icons of the past, but as living, breathing forces of change in the present. However, the road ahead is not easy. With the winds of change comes resistance, both from those who wish to maintain the status quo and from those who fear the power of a woman in control. The story of these modern queens is one of survival, not just for their kingdoms, but for their identities, their dignity, and their legacies. Will they succeed in their quest to reshape Africa's future, or will the betrayals they face prove too much to overcome? In the end, the rise of these modern queens is not just a victory for women, it is a victory for Africa. The struggle for power, the fight for justice, and the defense of legacy are not just personal battles, but collective ones. And as each queen faces her trials, she is reminded that she is not alone. The ghosts of the past, the ancient queens who fought for their people, stand with her, guiding her toward a future where women's power is no longer hidden, but celebrated. As the centuries pass, the legacy of Africa's greatest queens becomes a distant echo, revered in myths and legends but almost forgotten in the hustle of modern life. The world has changed, yet the strength, wisdom, and courage of these queens still pulse through the veins of Africa. Their stories, though buried beneath layers of time, continue to shape the land, influencing the rise of new leaders, warriors, and women who carry the mantle of power with grace and determination. But a hidden heir, a direct descendant of one of the ancient queens, emerges from the shadows, a young woman born in the heart of Africa, with a legacy too powerful to ignore. She is raised in the quiet corners of the continent, far from the politics and power struggles of the cities, but the blood of her ancestors runs deep within her. Her story begins like any other, a young girl with big dreams, unaware of the weight of the crown she is destined to wear. She grows up in an ordinary household, learning of the great queens through stories passed down through generations, but never imagining that she too will one day rise to lead her people. As the winds of change sweep across the continent, the young heir's path collides with destiny. A crisis, one of political unrest and a fractured nation, threatens to tear her homeland apart. The kingdom she was born to protect is on the brink of collapse, and the people are desperate for a leader. But in this time of turmoil, the young heir must first discover the truth about her bloodline, her heritage, and the legacy she has inherited. The ghosts of the past whisper to her, urging her to take up the mantle of leadership and restore her kingdom to its former glory. But there is a catch. Her rise will not be without immense sacrifice, and the forces that seek to destroy her are powerful and cunning. As she takes her first steps into the political arena, the heir faces betrayal from every direction. Powerful men in her own government, who have long held the reins of power, see her as a threat to their dominance. They seek to manipulate her, to control her, but they underestimate the strength of her will and the wisdom of her ancestors. She quickly learns the art of politics, of diplomacy, and of war. Every move she makes is scrutinized, and every victory she gains is hard-won. But her resolve never falters. In her quest to reclaim her throne, the young queen faces not just political foes but personal ones. Family members, once loyal allies, turn against her in pursuit of their own ambition. Friends become enemies, and the very people she seeks to save begin to question her worth. The old enemies of her bloodline rise again, attempting to reclaim the kingdom for themselves. And in the midst of this, she is faced with the most challenging question: what kind of queen will she be? Will she rule with the iron fist of her ancestors, or will she find a way to unite her fractured nation and bring about peace? The final battle is not fought with armies or weapons, but with hearts and minds. As her kingdom teeters on the edge of collapse, the young queen must unite her people, women and men, old and young, rich and poor. Her greatest challenge is not defeating an external enemy, but overcoming the deep divisions within her own society. She faces her greatest test yet. Can she heal the wounds of the past and build a future that honors the legacy of the great queens who came before her? As the dust settles, the young queen stands at the pinnacle of power, But she realizes that her victory is not just about reclaiming the throne, it is about creating a new future for her people. Her legacy is not defined by her bloodline alone, but by the choices she makes in her final battle. Will she be remembered as a ruler who restored her kingdom to greatness, or as a queen who united her people and brought them into a new era of peace and prosperity? In the end, the story of Africa's powerful queens is not one of conquest, but of transformation. Their legacies, passed down through the ages, continue to shape the continent, inspiring new generations of leaders who carry the mantle of power with courage and wisdom. The young heir, now a queen in her own right, understands that the true power of a queen lies not in her crown, but in her ability to lead her people through the darkest of times and into the light of a brighter future.